When I was 25 years old, I quit my 9-to-5 job because I was making $20,000 to $30,000 a month coaching athletes entirely online. And in the first 10 months of coaching athletes online, I made over $250,000 in that time frame. And in this video, I'm going to walk you through exactly how I did it, how I quit my job, the full story, how we were making $20,000 to $30,000 a month consistently, trained over 250 athletes, trained professional baseball players, high-level Division I college baseball players, draft prospects, got to sit in the dugout at a Savannah Bananas game. I had a really, really, really cool experience when I was coaching athletes. And at the end, I'll tell you why I stopped coaching athletes online too. If you don't know who I am, my name is Nick Neville. I run an online consulting company called JustCoach, where we help sports coaches achieve time and financial freedom by implementing the online mentorship model so they can train more athletes, make more money, and live a life of way more freedom. And now, obviously, I've helped over 500 sports coaches implement the model that I used to make 250 grand in 10 months as a 25-year-old. I actually turned 26 towards the end of that first year. And I'm going to take you guys back to how I even became aware of coaching athletes online. Because to a lot of people, when I told them, hey, I coach athletes online, the first thing that people would say is, well, can you support yourself by doing that? Little did they know, I was making probably way more money than they were as a 25-year-old kid coaching baseball players on my laptop. But for me, it was super commonplace. When I was growing up, I was the type of kid who was really curious, and I was always trying to learn stuff. And both of my parents worked, and they were super busy. And so in order to entertain myself, I found this magic thing called the internet. And I was really, really, really into the internet from a really young age. Maybe like 8, 9, 10 years old is when I started playing like multiplayer games online. I played a lot of RuneScape. And, even funny enough, I built a guide on how to build specific accounts on RuneScape. I actually have a YouTube channel. I'm not going to air it out what that YouTube channel is for my RuneScape account, but some of those videos have like over 10,000 views when I was, 10, 11, 12 years old making RuneScape videos. But anyway, I digress. I was always like kind of an internet kid, and I was always really interested in training specifically. I was a baseball player. I was a shortstop. I went to University of Notre my freshman year. I went to San Jac, one of the top junior colleges in the country. We finished third in the country that year. My junior year, went to University of South Carolina. My senior year and my 5th year of college, I went to Southern Illinois University, set a school home run record there. And we ended up winning 40 games my 5th year. So we were like, objectively, I was a really good baseball player, okay? And so when I was younger, I was really into training, specifically weight training. And I started building out like these programs for myself, these weightlifting programs, just based on things that I was learning on the internet, right? I would just go on YouTube, like how to get stronger. And I found this thing called the Wendler's 5-3-1 progression. And I ran that and I got way stronger and I got way better. And so I started learning about how to actually develop as an athlete. At the same time, in about 2012, people started posting videos of, or at least it became a lot more mainstream, people started posting videos of hitter swings on Twitter. And there was just more access to information than there had ever been. Now in 2026, and I think I'm a large part of this, there's tons of people posting content about how to become a better baseball player, football player, softball player, whatever, on social media. I would actually I think I'm a big part of that. I know that I'm a big reason as to why so many people now are posting on social media, because they see the impact that you can have on social media and the amount of money that you can make and the leverage that you can have and the influence that you can have, right? But back in 2012, there were only a handful of people, at least in the baseball world, that were using Twitter to post these like slow motion swings and have these conversations about baseball swing mechanics. And in 2012, how old was I? Like 15. And I was just starting to learn a little bit about, weightlifting and nutrition and baseball swing mechanics. And I even found these accounts that were how to become a better infielder. And so I basically used the internet to build my own lifting program, build my own throwing program, teach myself nutrition, teach myself how to swing, and I taught myself how to be an infielder. Get this, in the summertime, when I was in high school, I was playing mostly right field. And junior year, my opening day at South Carolina, I was the starting shortstop. I turned myself into an SEC caliber. The reason I didn't stay in the lineup is because I couldn't hit, but I turned myself into an SEC caliber shortstop by using the internet, right? So growing up, I was always watching this content and teaching myself and learning, but I didn't have any online coach to teach me these philosophies or to teach me any of these concepts. I had to figure it out all on my own. And through a lot of trial and error, I mean, I'm talking like most of the time I was probably doing things wrong because I was trying it completely on my own. I mean, I can't even tell you how much video my dad and I used to take just like studying and analyzing, and we just had the completely wrong perspective, you know, but we were trying to mimic whatever we were seeing on social media. And so fast forward, that's when companies like Driveline Baseball started to get really big. And I was exposed when I went to IMG for a 5th year of high school. This is in fall of 15, spring of 16. And there was a kid on my team who had trained with Driveline, and they were using weighted balls. And at the time, that was, you know, asinine. And now so many people use weighted balls, and even people in other sports now use weighted balls. But anyway, they were using weighted balls, and he was getting programmed by this guy who wasn't in his local area. And I'm like, huh, that's really interesting. So fast forward, I go through my freshman year of college. You know, you could look at my stats. I could tell you, I went 0 for 4 with 4 strikeouts on opening day against Lafayette College. I was a leadoff hitter actually at Notre Dame at the time, but that's a story for another time. My whole mental struggles throughout the game, which is why I needed an online coach. But anyway, my sophomore year of college, I ended up going to San Jac, and a kid that I played 1 tournament with or 2 tournaments with in high school had ended up helping me get to San Jac. And he told me that he was my roommate. He told me, hey, I'm working with this company. They're called Tread Athletics. And now Tread is making, you know, $25 million plus a year coaching pitchers, baseball pitchers online. And this is back in fall of 2017 is when he joined their program. I think this is his 2nd time he had gone on one of their programs. And they like laid out everything for him. It was super in depth. And I was like, whoa, this is super cool. I can't believe how much information and how much they're actually able to give him. And I saw him go from throwing 88 miles an hour to throwing 96 miles an hour, like within 4 months. It was nuts. It was nuts, the progress that he made. I think he was up to 97 actually. He was like the poster boy. He was the poster boy for Tread for a few years there while we were going through college, and then a little bit after as well. And so his success story like really drove a lot of their growth. And that was the first time I'd ever been exposed to it. So fast forward a little bit, as time goes on, I'm going through college. Online coaching wasn't really that big of a thing. And, you know, I got done playing baseball. I actually quit baseball on my 24th birthday. I signed a contract to play independent baseball. And the minute I signed it, I knew that it's not what I should be doing. And I walked away from the game on my 24th birthday, and I had no idea what I was going to do with my life. And I convinced myself that I was going to get rich in real estate. So I get a job as a mortgage loan officer to work for a family friend out here in Scottsdale, Arizona, where I live right now. And at that time, I decided, okay, I'm going to get into business. And I stumbled across a bunch of these internet entrepreneurs. And I promise you, this kind of all comes together on how I actually, trained athletes online, right? But I'm giving you guys all the context so that way everything will come full circle when I get there, I promise. So I stumble across these accounts on social media, on YouTube in specific, and they're talking about how to make money online. They're talking about marketing funnels. They're talking about, offers and I just start studying this like a maniac. And I committed to learning this stuff. And, 90 days into my mortgage job, I realized like, hey, this is not what I want to do with my life. I looked around at the top loan officers in the office that were making, $500,000 a year, $1 million a year. And I wouldn't trade places with them. Plus, they were in their 40s and it seemed like they didn't have any time freedom. I was like, you know what? If that's what it's going to take to make money in this industry, I don't want to do it. I would rather do something else. So I start looking around, trying to figure something out. And that's when I really locked in on the internet marketing stuff. I started reading a ton of books. I started reading like self-help books and business books and podcasts and whatever. I stopped drinking alcohol. I stopped doing anything. And I just locked in on developing myself into the highest version of myself that I possibly could. And at the time, I was only 24 years old. And a little bit after my 25th birthday, the old friend, the old teammate that I lived with was like, hey, I just moved into a house here in Old Town Scottsdale. You should come over and check it out. And he had like 40,000 followers on Instagram and was like posting his training. And they were actually training guys out of a backyard. I was like, whoa, this is crazy. And they were doing some like really cool like training and movement stuff. And so I go over to his house and he's like, yeah, I'm going to start training guys out of this backyard and I'm going to do remote coaching. And I was like, no way. Like he was a remote athlete himself and now he's going to start remote training athletes. I'm like, this is crazy. So me just being super curious, I'm like, well, what do you know about business? What do you know about sales? And I start trying to help him. And I realized that he didn't know anything about business. He didn't know anything about sales. Meanwhile, I'm over here in my mortgage job, learning how to sell, making a bunch of calls all the time, closing loans for, $500,000 or $1 million sometimes. There's like a lot of money being thrown around. And that was my first sales job. So like I was exposed to a high volume of sales in a short amount of time. Plus in the meantime, I'm reading these books, I'm watching these YouTube videos, I'm locked in. And I'm like, hey, I think I can help you. So what we do is we decide, hey, we're going to launch an online program off the back of your Instagram page. And he also had a Twitter as well. And so we built out a program on Google Sheets. He wasn't as good with like technology and sheets and stuff like that, but I had that skill. And so I built like a website to where it had like a video on it and then an application on it. And like I built an entire funnel using a software called ClickFunnels. And, I built an application on it and everything. Like it was crazy. And I was like, okay, let's release it. So we build out the program. We build it on Google Sheets. He like speaks the program out to me out loud, and I document it and make it look all pretty inside of a sheet, whatever. And then all of a sudden, he posts it on his story, and we start getting people to apply. And I'm like, oh, I start texting him, hey, this is Nick with whatever XYZ company. I'm not going to air out who my partner was, but this is Nick. Do you have time for a call? And so I start getting on phone calls with these people. And I'll never forget that I got on a call and I pitched this guy $1,000 for 12 weeks of training. I learned this from a YouTube video that I should do a 12-week program, okay? And we called the 12-week Flamethrower Blueprint. Okay, it was going to be 12 weeks of intensive training. And my business partner had learned a bunch of different training stuff and was super athletic. He was a shorter guy, could throw really hard. And, we just had like a different way of training, okay? And I think that played heavily into our favor. And so he launches it to his audience. And, I'm on the phone with this guy. I'm like, hey, it's $1,000 for 12 weeks. Okay. And he's like, okay, cool. I'm going to talk to my dad. So we hang up the phone. 30 minutes later, he goes, yeah, we're in. Boom, pays $1,000. And I'm like, I just made $1,000 for being on the phone with a random stranger selling them an online coaching program. This is insane. By the way, that kid's name was Ryan. Ryan, if you're watching this, shout out Ryan. And like I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. And so long story short, we made $20,000 in the month of October 2023. Or I'm sorry, 2022. October 2022, we made $20,000. That was the launch. It was insane. And so I'm thinking, oh my goodness, this is crazy. Like, let's see if we can do it again. Next month, we do the same thing. And what we were doing was we had some guys come over to the house in person. And then my partner was a wizard with the camera and made insane content. And so his job was to get the leads. My job was to close them into the program. And I was kind of doing all the back end stuff. He was like marketing and like product. Okay. So second month, we just do more of the same thing. We're training guys in person. We're promoting a ton of the results. 28 grand. I'm like, whoa. So I quit my job on December 1st, 2 months after starting this program. We did $48,000 in sales. I move into the house and, we basically build this backyard in this house to be like an outdoor training facility for high level pitchers. And the entire premise of this program, or what we were doing, was like, it was a completely different way of training. It was a completely different way of looking at it. And, we weren't doing a bunch of drills like everybody else. We weren't lifting the same way that everybody else. We were doing things completely differently. And then we were just so aggressive with our proof. So in December of 2022 for winter break, we actually had like 40 or 50 people fly out to Arizona and come train in our backyard. We got so much foot traffic, and this is just like a house in Old Town Scottsdale, okay? We had so much foot traffic coming through the house that we had the city of Scottsdale come to our front door and they're like, hey, you guys can't be running a business out of this house. Like, this is actually illegal. And so we're like, oh yeah, no. Like, we said what we needed to get the cops to go away. Let's just put it that way. And, we're like, this is insane. We did like 30 grand that month in December. We hosted like a live at bat with like Kerry Carpenter showed up, who's like an absolute stud for the Tigers. Like I'm pretty sure there were multiple big leaguers that came out to our live at bats. It was insane. It was insane. And all we were doing was we were promoting it on social media. We were selling people into this 12-week $1,000 program. And then, retaining people on the back end if we could. And we were just doing that like clockwork. And so we did that, over an extended period of time through, I think we stopped doing it in August of 2023. Okay, so for about 10 months-ish, really July is when things started to fall apart. And we were signing up, 20 to 30 new clients every single month. Now, what I would change about what we were doing was we needed a way better process to retain our athletes. We would get athletes really quick results, and then they would go on and bounce off to the next program. We needed a way better process to retain these athletes. Another mistake that I made, second mistake that I made, was there was a period of time where I thought that charging $250 a month, no commitment, cancel at any time, was going to get more people to say yes. It actually decreased our close rates, and we made less money as a result. So there was a couple months there where we only made like, $14,000 or $15,000, which still obviously is not bad as a couple, 25-year-olds jumping around in a backyard training athletes, right? But I made that huge mistake. So we went back to the paid in fulls, and now even what I have my clients inside of, my clients that I coach now do is to charge for like a 6-month program for like $2,000 or $3,000, right? So there were a bunch of mistakes that we ended up making, but we worked with over 250 athletes in 10 months as a couple 25-year-olds, professionals, Division I prospects, high school kids that were absolute studs. It was insane. It was absolutely insane. And we made a bunch of money doing it. And I think the biggest reason why we were able to have so much success is we were so passionate about what we were doing. We were really good at what we did. Like on our landing page, our website, all it had was 12-week Flamethrower blueprint, a quick explainer video, a little bio about me and my partner, the 3 pillars of our program, and then a ridiculous amount of high-level players that we had come through our program. Like we had weekend starters in the SEC coming through our program. It was insane. It was insane. And so you might be wondering, well, Nick, if you were so good at that, why did you stop? What happened? Well, the entire time, I never really wanted to get into coaching the actual athletes. I became much more infatuated with the business side of things and how all the numbers worked. And if I changed the page to look like this, or if we said this in our marketing, or if I said this on the phone, it got people to take the next step. Or if I built out our program in this specific way, our athletes got even better results. So I became much more infatuated with that part, not so much the actual coaching part. And I knew that the entire time, which is why it was my job to close the leads and manage the entire operation, right? That was my job. And we had an absolutely terrible falling out, I have another video on this channel talking about, what actually happened. But long story short, we had a really bad falling out and the business was just no longer. We stopped doing it. I cut off all my athletes and I wasn't really sure what to do. And I always had a vision of getting into consulting, teaching people how to do what we were doing. I mean, this is the same kid who made a guide on RuneScape on how to build specific accounts when he was 10 years old. I've always been a teacher and both of my parents are in higher education right now. I've always been a teacher. I've always been a coach, even for my teammates when I was growing up. I've always been really good at that. And I wanted to make some money, right? My income got totally cut off. Fortunately enough, I had a bunch of money saved up because we made a bunch of money and our profit margins were super high. And, I started teaching people how to do it. Initially, I partnered with somebody to, kind of help him get off the ground. He's got like a couple 100,000 followers right now. His name's Drew Richard. I actually have a testimonial on this YouTube channel of me working with him. And I help him get off the ground. And I saw how intensive it was to be hands-on in the trenches. And I didn't have the skills nor the patience nor the know-how to actually make money with a model like that. So what I started to do was I started to just consult people. I started to coach people. And I launched JustCoach in October of 2023. And I've worked with almost 500 coaches by now across a dozen different sports, teaching them the principles that I instilled inside of my online coaching business to make over $250,000 in 10 months as a 25-year-old. And then now I have clients that make over $100,000 a month. We have in-person events where we give out trophies to clients who make $30,000, $50,000 a month. It happens all the time, And I've learned so much. There's so much that I wish I could, go back and do. But at the end of the day, I believe that it is now my mission, my purpose to show people that, hey, you can make money with online coaching. You don't have to go get a 9-to-5 job. You don't have to get into the traditional coaching route. You don't have to coach for a college. You don't have to give lessons. What you need to do is you need to have a specific athlete that you're trying to help, the foundations of an online program built out. You need to know how to grow and monetize an audience. And then you need to know how to take payments and book appointments with people. That's pretty much it. You don't need a whole lot more skill than that. And so that's how I made $250,000 in 10 months coaching athletes all online. And why I stopped, what I do now, and the mistakes that I made along the way. So hopefully this video is super valuable for you. Catch you guys in the next one. Peace. And if you want to learn about the online mentorship model and how it works, then just watch this video right here. It'll give you a full breakdown.